dress my sister was wearing in the third Instagram story cost more than my graduate school tuition. I know because I'd looked it up. That's the kind of thing forensic accountants do at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night when they should be sleeping. We notice numbers. We notice when numbers don't add up. And the numbers of my family's life had stopped adding up a long time ago. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment in Minneapolis, back against the couch, a half-empty bowl of cereal going soggy on the coffee table. My laptop was open to a spreadsheet I wasn't really looking at. My phone was propped against a coffee mug, and on it, my sister Cordelia was twirling on a balcony in Positano, the Amalfi Coast spread behind her like a postcard somebody had paid too much for. She was 31 years old and getting married to a man she'd known for 4 months, and the whole production was happening at a cliffside hotel called the Sirene that I'd looked up earlier. €1,200 a night, minimum stay of 3 nights, plus the rehearsal dinner, plus the welcome brunch, plus the boat excursion to Capri the day after. My parents had been there for 6 days already. My older brother had flown in from Phoenix on Sunday. The wedding was Saturday. It was Wednesday. I had not gone. I'd told everyone I had a deposition I couldn't move. That was a lie. The truth was that I'd spent the better part of 3 years building a life that didn't have my family in the middle of it, and I wasn't about to fly 6,000 miles to watch them spend money they didn't have on a man none of us had met until last Christmas. His name was Matteo. He was supposedly the son of a textile family from Como. Cordelia had met him on a dating app while he was visiting Chicago on what he called business. He'd moved in with her 2 weeks later. He had a smile that never reached his eyes and habit of changing the subject whenever anyone asked him a direct question. I told my sister in February that something felt off. She told me I was bitter because I was 33 and single. She told me I'd always been jealous of her. She told me to stay in Minneapolis if I couldn't be happy for her, and then she stopped answering my texts for 2 months. So I scrolled through her Instagram with my cereal getting soggy, and I watched her twirl in a dress that cost $18,000, and I did the math in my head the way I always did. Mortgage on the house in Naperville, 2 HELOCs my dad had taken out, which I knew about because he'd asked me to co-sign one back in 2021 and I'd refused. The credit cards, my brother's child support arrears, the car my mom had leased last spring. The math didn't work. It never worked. And yet there she was, my mother, in a video posted at 4:17 p.m. Italian time, clinking a champagne glass with a woman in pearls who I'm pretty sure was wearing a name tag. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom. "Sweetheart, the hotel is having some trouble running our card for the welcome dinner. Just a glitch on their end. Can you send me $4,200 on Zelle? Dad will pay you back the second the bank opens in the morning. $4,200 for a welcome dinner. At a hotel that ran cards for a living." I stared at the message. I didn't even feel angry. I felt something more boring than that, tired, like I was watching a rerun of a show I'd already seen 6 times and knew exactly how it ended. There was always a glitch, there was always a card that didn't work. There was always a wire that hadn't come through yet, a check that had been sent, a transfer that the bank had inexplicably delayed. There was always a reason that I, the responsible one, the one with savings, the one without children, the one who'd worked too hard for too long, should pay. I typed back, "No, sorry, I watched the 3 dots appear. They disappeared. They appeared again." My mom was thinking about how to phrase it. Then my sister's name lit up the screen. "You're seriously not helping right now?" Mom is humiliated. Matteo's parents are right there. This is the kind of selfishness I'm talking about. Don't come to the reception, just don't. I don't want your bitter face in my pictures. I didn't reply. There was nothing to reply to. I'd heard every version of this speech since I was 9 years old and refused to give my sister my Halloween candy. I plugged my phone into the charger, put it face down on the kitchen counter, and went to bed. I want to be clear about something. I went to bed at 11:40 p.m. on a Wednesday in Minneapolis, and I slept like a baby. I dreamed about nothing. I did not lie awake torturing myself. I had spent 3 years in therapy learning how to do exactly this, and I was finally good at it. That's the part I want you to remember because what happened next was not my fault. I want to be clear about that too. I woke up at 3:08 a.m. because my phone was buzzing through the kitchen counter so hard I could hear it from the bedroom. I got up. I walked to the kitchen. I picked up the phone. The screen was a wall of notifications stacked so densely that I couldn't read individual messages, just blocks of text scrolling past. The call log said 63 missed calls, 63. From my mom, my dad, my brother Howell, my sister, a number with an Italian country code I didn't recognize, and someone in my contacts listed as Aunt Phaedra who had not spoken to me since I declined to lend her $7,000 in 2019. The texts were nearly incoherent. Pick up, please. Where are you? Emergency. This is serious. Policia. Pick up. Please answer. Howell is in handcuffs. I stood in my kitchen in a t-shirt and underwear and read the word handcuffs 3 times. I called my father. He answered before the first ring finished. Petra. His voice was thin and reedy, like he'd been holding it together for hours, and it had finally torn. Thank God. Thank God. Dad, what's happening? In the background, I could hear someone speaking Italian fast and clipped, and my mother sobbing in the bottomless way she only sobbed when she was scared and not when she was just performing. That distinction matters. I've had 33 years to learn it. Matteo's gone, my dad said. What do you mean gone? He left during the rehearsal dinner. He said he was going to the restroom. He didn't come back. We thought he was sick. Then your sister got a text from him. My dad's voice cracked. He took her ring. He took the cash gifts from his side of the family. He took the rental car. Petra, he took the wire confirmation. What wire confirmation? There was a long silence. Dad, what wire confirmation? Sweetheart, we need help. We need it now. The hotel, they're saying the deposit didn't go through. It was supposed to go through 3 days ago. Your mother and I. Dad, stop. Why are there police there? He started crying, real crying, not performative. Your brother got into it with one of the staff. He thought the manager was lying. He thought it was a setup. He pushed him. Petra, he pushed him into a glass cabinet. The whole thing came down. Your sister was screaming. She threw a champagne bucket through the window of the dining room. The window, Petra, it was a 16th century window. I sat down on the floor of my kitchen. The tile was cold. The hotel is pressing charges, he said. Howell is at a station in Salerno. They took your sister to a room. They have all of our passports. They won't let us leave until the damages are paid. They're saying it's 28,000 euros for the window alone, plus the cabinet, plus the room, plus the deposit that never went through. Petra, we need 36,000 euros by morning or your brother goes to a holding facility in Naples. I closed my eyes. I let myself feel one full breath of it, the sick lurch of being the only adult in a family of adults, the muscle memory of fix it, Petra, fix it, fix it, fix it. And then I opened my eyes and I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Dad, why didn't the wire go through? He didn't answer. Dad, your mother and I, Dad, you're with some complications with the line of credit we used to book the hotel, some flags. The bank wanted documentation that what line of credit? It's not a problem, sweetheart. We just need what? Line of credit. The silence was so long I thought the call had dropped. I checked. The timer was still ticking. He was just sitting there at 3 a.m. in Italy, breathing. Dad, I need you to put Mom on the phone right now. He didn't. My mother grabbed it. Her voice came through wet and breathy and pleading, and I could already hear the shape of the lie before she got the words out. Petra, baby, you have to listen to me. Your father didn't want to bother you with the small stuff because we knew you'd worry. But the bank had questions about the home equity application, and we put your name on it as a co-signer because your credit is so good, and they were going to release the funds last Friday, but they want to verify. I stood up. I walked to my home office. I sat down at my desk. I opened my laptop. I logged into my credit monitoring service, which I checked on the 1st of every month because I am the kind of person who checks her credit on the 1st of every month. It was the 14th. The dashboard loaded. There was a red banner across the top. 2 new accounts opened in the last 30 days. I clicked. A home equity line of credit had been opened on March 19th. Borrower, my name. Co-borrower, my father. Collateral, my parents' house in Naperville, which I have never owned, which I have never lived in as an adult, which I have never signed a document about in my entire life. Amount, $95,000. There was a second account, a personal loan from a credit union in Illinois I'd never heard of, $41,000. Borrower, me. Sole signatory, me. Application submitted from an IP address in Naperville. Date, April 2nd. I scrolled to the document attachment on the HELOC. It was scrolled to the document attachment on the HELOC. It was a scan of a signed application. I zoomed in on the signature line. My signature, not exactly mine. The P was right, the T was wrong. Whoever had done it had practiced, but they hadn't practiced enough. The R was too round. I'd been signing my name a certain way since I was 16, and the person who'd forged it had clearly worked from a photograph of an old document, probably my high school diploma, which my mother kept in a frame in her hallway. My mother was still talking in my ear. We were going to pay it back before you noticed, baby. We were going to use the money from the wedding gifts and the funds from Mateo's family, and the loan from the credit union was just a bridge. I put the phone on the desk. I put it on speaker. I picked up my work phone, the burner I keep for client calls when I don't want to use my personal cell, and I started a voice memo. Mom, I said, I need you to say back to me what you just told me. About the HELOC. About my name on it. Petra, please, sweetheart, please just send the wire. I'm begging you. Your brother is in a cell. Did you and Dad sign my name on a home equity line of credit application without my permission? She was quiet. Mom, did you forge my signature on a financial document? It wasn't forging, baby. Your father and I, we are your parents. We have a right. That's not how that works, Mom. Petra, your brother is going to go to an Italian prison. I looked at my screen. At the line of credit application, at the loan application, at the signature that wasn't mine, at the address my parents had listed as my residence. They put their own address. They'd opened these accounts and listed me as living in their house in Naperville, which is what allowed them to use the house as collateral on my behalf without anyone calling me to verify. They'd built the whole thing so I'd never see the mail. Mom, I said, I need you to give the phone to whoever is in charge over there, the senior officer, not a translator. The officer. Petra, please. Mom, give the phone to the officer. I heard her say something in Italian that wasn't quite Italian, just a desperate noise, and then I heard my father in the background say her name, and then I heard a man's voice, low and weary, take the phone. Pronto, Mauriciello, Pitaluga. Mauriciello, Pitaluga. Mauriciello, I said. My name is Petra Holloway. I'm calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the United States. I am the daughter of the 2 American citizens you have in custody. I need to make a statement, and I need you to record it. Are you able to record this call? There was a pause. I could hear the change in his posture through the phone. He had been expecting a hysterical American daughter offering a wire transfer. He had not been expecting this. Signora, we are recording, yes. Per favor, tell me. My parents and my brother and my sister, who are currently in your custody, have committed wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery against me in the state of Illinois. I have just discovered that my parents opened a home equity line of credit and a personal loan in my name without my consent or knowledge. They forged my signature on the applications. I have never authorized any debt instrument related to this trip. I am not financially liable for any of the damages they have caused in Italy. I am not their guarantor. I am their victim. I will not be wiring any funds. I will be filing federal charges against them in the United States this morning, and I am requesting that you do not allow them to use my name or my credit as any part of their bail or restitution negotiations. Do you understand? There was another pause. A longer one. Senora Holloway, you are saying that the debts which financed this trip are fraudulent. In your name, yes. And you are willing to provide documentation of this. I will email you the credit report, the signed applications, and a sworn affidavit before sunrise. In the background, behind the officer's breathing, I heard my mother make a sound I had never heard her make before. It was not crying, it was an animal noise, the noise a mother makes when she realizes her daughter has finally stopped being her daughter. Signora, the officer said, very quietly, I have been doing this work for 26 years. I will say to you only one thing. My dispias. I'm sorry. I hung up. It was 3:34 a.m. The whole call had taken 26 minutes. I sat at my desk for a long time. The radiator clicked. A car drove by outside and the headlights swept across my wall, and then it was dark again. I did not cry. I want to tell you that I cried, because I think the version of this story where I cried would be easier for you to root for, but I didn't. I felt something more useful than tears. I felt a door close that I had been holding open with my whole body for 33 years. I called my bank's fraud line at 3:38 a.m. I was on hold for 9 minutes. The woman who picked up sounded sleepy and very kind, and she walked me through filing a fraud report on both accounts. She placed a freeze on my credit at all 3 bureaus while we were still on the phone. She gave me a case number. She said someone from their fraud investigations team would call me in the morning. She said quietly, "Ma'am, I'm really sorry." I called the credit union next. The fraud line there was less responsive, but the report was filed. At 4:50 a.m., I emailed the Marcial the documentation I promised. I copied my attorney, a woman I'd retained 2 years ago, specifically for situations involving my family, because that is the kind of contingency planning I do. She emailed back at 5:02 a.m. with one sentence on it. "Don't talk to any of them. I'll call you at 9. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. The sun came up over the parking lot of my apartment complex, gray and pink and slow. My phone, which I had silenced but not turned off, kept lighting up. My aunt, my cousins, a second cousin I had not spoken to since a funeral in 2014, a family friend named Caroline who used to babysit me and who I am almost certain my mother had called and weaponized. I didn't answer any of them. At 7 a.m., I went into my settings and I blocked my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my aunt, both of my cousins, the second cousin, Coraline, and every number from Illinois that I didn't recognize. It took me about 12 minutes. The silence afterward was the cleanest thing I have ever felt. My attorney called at 9 on the dot. She'd already been in touch with the Marcello's office through a colleague in Rome. She'd already filed the preliminary fraud report with the Illinois Attorney General's office. She'd already started the process to subpoena the credit union's records to prove the fraudulent IP address. She told me to forward her every text and voicemail I received from any family member from that point forward and not to respond to any of them. She told me that my parents would almost certainly face federal charges for aggravated identity theft once they returned to the United States, which carried a mandatory minimum sentence of 2 years on top of whatever else they were charged with. She told me in a tone that was professional and not pitying that I had done everything correctly, that this was the rare case where the victim had reacted in real time with the documentation already gathered, that the case would go fast. I asked her what would happen to my brother and sister. She said, "They're collateral damage of their own choices. Your brother destroyed property in a foreign country. He'll likely serve some time there before he's deported. Your sister was involved in the property damage and is potentially a co-conspirator on the fraud, depending on what she knew. The Italian authorities will handle the property side. The U.S. side will handle here." I asked her if I would ever get the $95,000 back. She said, "You won't owe it. The fraud will be proven. The house will be foreclosed on as part of the recovery, most likely. Your credit will recover within 18 months if we move fast, which we are." I asked her if my parents would lose the house. She said, "Petra, they lost the house the moment they signed your name on that application." I hung up. Here's what I want to tell you about the next 6 months, because I think this is the part that nobody who tells these stories ever bothers with. The catharsis isn't the phone call. The catharsis is the part where you have to learn how to be a person again. For the first 3 weeks, I did not sleep more than 4 hours a night. I jumped every time my phone rang. I had a panic attack in the dairy aisle of my grocery store because the woman in front of me had the exact tone of voice my mother used to use when she wanted something. I called my therapist twice a week instead of once. I lost 6 pounds without trying. I gained them back in week 5 when I started cooking, which is a thing my mother had never let me do as a child because she'd said I burned down the kitchen, and which turned out to be something I was actually pretty good at. My brother served 11 months in an Italian facility. My sister served 4. Both were deported. I learned this from my attorney, not from them. My parents flew home on August 12th and were arrested at O'Hare. The charges were aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, mortgage fraud, and forgery. They pled out. My father got 41 months. My mother got 29. The house in Naperville was sold at auction to satisfy the federal restitution order, and most of the proceeds were applied to the fraudulent debt that I had not owed but had been on the hook for clearing. I got a check in the mail in November for $940, which represented the residual recovery after the legal and administrative fees. I framed it. I did not cash it. It is on the wall of my office, behind my desk, where clients can't see it, but I can. My credit score recovered by April. My attorney's bill came to just under $13,000, which my firm partially covered because they considered me a high-value associate and they didn't want to lose me. I paid the rest in 3 installments and did not feel a single thing about it. I have not spoken to anyone in my family since 3:34 a.m. on a Thursday in April. It has been almost 2 years. I get a Christmas card every year from a woman named Coraline who, against her own better judgment, decided after about 6 months that I had been right all along. She sends me updates I do not ask for. My sister is living in Tampa with a man she met in rehab. My brother is in Texas. My mother is 2 years into her sentence with about 6 months left. My father has another year and a half. They have, according to Coraline, talked about reaching out to me when they get out. I've told Coraline, very politely, that I will block her too if she ever delivers a message from them. I am 35 now. I bought a house last spring. It's small, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a yard the size of a parking space. My partner moved in this winter. His name is not important to this story, but he is gentle in a way that took me a long time to trust. We have a dog. She is a mutt, with one ear that flops and one that stands up, and her name is Fig, and she sleeps on a corduroy bed at the foot of our bed, and I sometimes wake up at 3 in the morning and reach down to put my hand on her side just to feel her breathing. I want to say one more thing, and then I'm done. People keep telling me that what my family did to me was a betrayal. They mean it kindly. They mean it the way they mean anything when they don't know what else to say. But it wasn't a betrayal. A betrayal requires a relationship that was real to begin with. What my family did to me was the natural extension of what they had been doing my entire life. They had always treated me like a resource. They had always treated me like a checking account with a face. The only thing that changed in April was the dollar amount and the legal definition. The relationship had never been a relationship. It had been a hostage situation, and I had been the hostage, and the strange and terrible and freeing thing about the night they tried to force me to pay was that for the first time in 3 decades, I noticed the rope. And once I noticed it, I cut it. That's the whole story. There's no twist at the end. There's no reconciliation. There's no grand reunion where everyone learns their lesson and we all hug in the rain. There's just a woman in a small house in Minneapolis with a dog named Fig and a check on her wall and a phone that doesn't ring at 3 in the morning anymore. If you have a family like the one I had, I want you to hear me. I want you to hear me very clearly. You are allowed to put down the rope. You will not die. Some mornings you will even wake up and you will go to your kitchen and you will make a cup of coffee and you will drink it black and bitter and hot, and you will think, this is the most expensive coffee I have ever bought. And then you will think, this is the most expensive coffee I have ever bought. And then you will think, and worth every cent. I think about that night more than I want to admit. Not the panic of it. Not the screaming, not the moment I saw my own signature on a document I'd never touched. I think about the cereal bowl, the soggy cereal bowl on my coffee table at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday before any of it started when I made the decision to type the word no and go to bed. That no was the whole story. Everything that came after, the police call, the credit freeze, the federal charges, the auction of the house in Naperville, was just the consequences of a single small refusal that I had spent 3 years in therapy learning how to say. My mother forged my signature because she believed correctly that I had spent my whole life saying yes. The math of my family had always balanced because I was the variable they could move. The night they tried to move me one more time, I stopped being a variable, and the equation collapsed. There is a quiet kind of strength that nobody talks about because it doesn't look like anything on the outside. It is the strength of refusing to perform rescue. It is the strength of letting other adults face the natural outcome of their own decisions. My brother, Hal, pushed a man into a glass cabinet because he had been raised to believe that consequences were something other people dealt with. My sister Cordelia threw a champagne bucket through a 400-year-old window for the same reason. My parents stole my identity for the same reason. None of them were stupid people. They had simply lived a life in which I, or someone like me, had always shown up at the last minute with a checkbook. The moment I didn't, they discovered that the floor had been me all along. I want to tell you something I've thought about a lot. Love is not the same thing as access. The people in my family confused those two for so long that they could no longer tell them apart. Real love asks before it takes. Real love calls a daughter on her birthday instead of when the credit card declines. Real love does not require the person being loved to fund the loving. If someone in your life has only ever appeared in your story when they needed something, that is not a relationship. That is a transaction wearing a relationship's clothes. I want you to be smart about your money. Lock your credit if you are not actively borrowing. Set alerts on every account. Keep your important documents somewhere only you can reach. These are practical things and they matter. But the deeper thing matters more. You are allowed to disappoint people who only loved you when you said yes. You are allowed to be the villain in a story being told by people who were never honest in the first place. You are allowed to put the rope down. The morning after I made that call, I made coffee in a quiet apartment that nobody could lay claim to. I drank it black. It was bitter and it was hot, and for the first time in 33 years, it was entirely mine.